I know last time I said it wasn't the grime, but sometimes it is the grime. What is up, everybody? I wanted to talk to you today with another Color Theory 40K video because I have 20 plus years of visual arts experience, so you don't have to. In this episode, though, I wanted to touch upon AK Interactive's little bottle of paint called Streaking Grime. If you have been on the Instagram scene and you've been searching for Blanchitsu or grim dark painting or anything like that, you've probably heard of Streaking Grime, but if you haven't, this is an enamel wash that applies a brown-green kind of tint to whatever you're painting. And it often looks really, really good. But there are some actual legitimate color theory reasons for that, and I wanted to talk about those today. So in the last video I did talk about basing and how important that is to up the contrast game of your miniature painting, and all of that is still true, but what I did not mention was how important weathering can be. Although I did briefly get into it, I wanted to touch specifically on the Streaking Grime effect and why it is so often lauded as a fantastic tool for the grimdark painter. I believe this can be narrowed down into three main properties of this enamel wash. The first of which is something that I've already talked about, built-in contrast. Now, if we take a look at this side-by-side example of the preview from last video of my Electro Priest proxy, unweathered, unbased, and now weathered but still unbased, you can see something is still missing. Go check the basing video to get more information on that and why it's so important. But also you can see how much more definition the model has with this weathering Streaking Grime applied to it. This is because Streaking Grime is basically a built-in contrast boost. If you want to even further boost the contrast, you can come back in later with your original colors to bring back the highlights from some of the tint that is unmistakably laid onto the paint. It's a wash. It's going to add contrast to your model, and it's going to settle in the recesses and make them darker, of course. Another reason, though, that I think that the Streaking Grime effect is so strong is a lesser known theory in color theory. I really just said theory twice there, now 3 times. What this is known as is the mother color effect. And what the mother, try saying that 3 times fast, the mother color effect is the principle of mixing one single color into every color that you use to paint a painting. And what that gives is a much more unified, properly held together effect to your painting. There is something to unify every single element of that painting together. Now, using an enamel wash like Streaking Grime isn't the same in principle as the mother color effect, because you're not actually mixing Streaking Grime into your paint colors, but in practical application the effect is much the same. When you do an all-over wash, which is usually the technique that is used for the sort of like grim dark Streaking Grime look, what that does is it unifies all of the colors on the palette with the color of Streaking Grime, which is this sort of brownish green kind of tinge. It warms it up a little bit and it grimes it up a little bit, as you know, as advertised. But the important thing here is that all of these colors are being hue shifted very slightly towards brown green, every single color that you've been painting with. This is essentially what the mother color principle and effect is. Because even when you're removing the excess Streaking Grime from the surfaces you don't want it to touch, there will still be a thin layer of enamel left on the surface, even if you go over it really carefully, because that's just kind of how things work. But regardless, what that does is it ties in all of your colors together, and it ties in all of your variety of paint sources together to make a very unified, put together looking miniature. The last proper reason to use Streaking Grime, and I think maybe the main one that separates it apart from its competitors, is the fact that it's an enamel wash, which is very, very different in practice from an acrylic wash. So if you're familiar with painting Games Workshop products, you probably know about Null Oil, which is a black acrylic wash sold by the Citadel paint series of products. And what this does is it can be used as an all-over wash. It doesn't have to be, depending on what you're painting, but it applies, a thin layer of black that has low surface tension, so it seeps into the crevices. And that's about it. You just put it on, you forget about it, wait for it to dry, come back another day, and continue your painting. Streaking Grime is a little bit more of an involved process. To get it right, at least. You can do the same thing and totally ruin your model. If you treat it like an acrylic wash, you're gonna have a bad time. So here is what happens when you're using an enamel wash. Because enamel paints are a lot more similar to oil paints. And if you're not familiar with oil paints, they're not water soluble. You use mineral spirits, or white spirits in some regions of the world as it's known, to thin down and remove paint while it is not yet drying. Because enamel and oil paints have a much longer working time associated with them, which means it takes them a lot longer to fully set and fully dry on the surface that you're painting. This sounds like it could be an annoying thing, but it is actually the secret weapon of enamel washes, oil paints, any sort of thing in this category that you're using to paint your miniatures with, and that is the removal process. Now, you can try to remove an acrylic wash from your model, but proceed with caution because it's probably not going to end very well. You see, the thing with acrylic washes is they're soluble in water, and the other thing is the rest of the paints you're using are probably also acrylic paints. So you put the water over the wash to try and take it off, you're probably taking off some of the layer paints below it too. That's just kind of how acrylic works. It's rejuvenated with water. Enamel paints don't care about water. They don't interact with acrylics at all. It is completely safe to put your enamel wash directly on your acrylics. Nothing wrong with that. And it's also safe to gently remove it with a Q-tip or non-brand alternative to gently scrub away with a Q-tip soaked in a bit of mineral spirits. And what that does is it gives you a lot more control over where your wash is applied as opposed to using an acrylic wash. This means you can often get a much better result than if you were just going to wash with your normal acrylics, and you don't really have the final say in where the actual wash is going to end up. But Streaking Grime and other such products give you that degree of control to fine-tune where the wash ends up, allowing you to ultimately craft the perfect wash effect for your miniature. Anyway, those are three of the main reasons why I think Streaking Grime is both an amazing product that I use on nearly every miniature that I have since I've purchased it, and one of the secret weapons in miniature painting that you can use to upgrade your painting to the next level. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it was of some help to you. If it was, please feel free to throw it a like. It would really help the channel out. And if you want to see more color theory videos, more kit bashing videos, maybe even some more lore videos, be sure to stay subscribed so you don't miss a single one. I've been Toasty, and this has been Color Theory 40K. Peace.